Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of A Little Dash of Therese. Today I am going to be taking you through the process of preparing a traditional Catholic Easter basket. A little bit of history for myself. I am a Byzantine Catholic. I started off growing up as Roman Catholic and then converted when I was about 10-11 years old. And this tradition has become one of my most favorite traditions since joining the Byzantine faith. A traditional Easter basket is actually what you would be preparing for your Easter feast to be blessed. Now, in the Easter basket, you will find a pascha, which is an egg-based bread, and it is symbolic of Christ, who is our true bread. Next, we put in a hrudka, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. What it is a bland but sweet egg custard style cheese, and its taste is to remind us of the moderation Christians should have in all things. Next, we have the ham, a rich dish to serve as the main course, richness and symbolic of the great joy and abundance of Easter. Forgive me, I'm looking at my notes while I'm reading this off. Next to the ham, we have sausage. Some people put in a garlicky sausage, kielbasa, your preference of sausage. And the sausage is indicative of God's generosity. Next, we'll put in hard-boiled eggs, which represent new life and resurrection. Then we'll be putting in a butter shaped like a lamb. Some people make their butter shaped like a cross, but it is to remind us of the goodness of Christ that we should have toward all things. Bacon also goes in the basket, symbolic of the overabundance of God's mercy to us. Then we have salt, a condiment necessary for flavor, reminding the Christian of his duty to others. Then everything goes into a basket, traditionally with a beeswax candle that will be lit when the baskets are blessed. And then the basket is covered with a linen typically embroidered with our Easter greeting, which is, "Christ is risen, indeed he is risen." To make the bread in its full recipe, you will need 2 cups of warm water, 2 packages of yeast, 1 cup of milk, 3/4 cup of butter flavor Crisco, 4 egg yolks, 2 whole eggs, 1 cup of sugar, 10 to 11 cups of flour, and 1 tablespoon of salt. First and foremost, we are going to be preparing the Easter pascha, the bread. Because my mixer is on the smaller side, I'm actually going to be making my bread in half batches. So we're going to take 1 packet of yeast, and about 1/4 cup of warm water just to get the yeast blooming. And set that aside. Now, to the remaining warm water, we're going to add in 1/4 cup and half of the 1/4 cup of butter flavor Crisco. And I find it's easiest to measure half of 1/4 cup just by filling in half of 1/4 cup. If it's a little over or a little under, it'll be all right. This dough is actually quite forgiving. Then we'll need half a cup of sugar and half a cup of milk. Oopsie. There we go. Okay. And then 1/2 cup of milk. And now we're going to put this in the microwave so it can get nice and warm. We'll heat this for about 30 seconds at a time. You don't want it too hot, but you don't want it cold. Now while our milk sugar Crisco recipe is getting warm, we're going to divide out our egg whites and egg yolks. And again, since I'm doing 1/2 batch at a time, I'm going to need 2 egg yolks and 1 whole egg. Your milk and Crisco mixture is done when you can see that most of your Crisco has melted, but it's not too hot. So now, I forgot to add in the salt, which is going to be 1/2 tablespoon. So 1/2 tablespoon is 1½ teaspoons. 3 teaspoons make 1 tablespoon. Mix around. And now everything's going to start being put into the big mixer. Starting with that. After our Crisco and milk concoction is into the mixer, we're going to take our yeast and get that in. Set that aside. Now we're just going to start the mixer nice and slow, just to blend everything. Slowly we're going to add the egg. And we're going to turn the speed up a little. Again, since this is a 1/2 batch, I'm only going to be adding 5 to 5½ cups. All right, and then we're going to drop that. We're going to put it on a medium-low speed. Then after a little bit, you'll want to take your mixer and scrape it down. That way no flour is getting left on the bottom. Alright, next 2 cups are going in. By the way, this is how the dough looks. As we add in more flour, you can turn the speed of your mixer up to a medium high. All right, then like before, we're going to scrape it down, make sure that everything's starting to properly ball up. We have one more cup and then possibly another half cup. Oops. This recipe can be quite messy, but it's such a fun one to do. And now we're just going to let the machine knead the dough for a little bit. And that should be good. Yep. When the dough is ready, it won't stick to your fingers, but it'll have this nice stretch to it. It's very nice. We're now going to take a glass bowl or metal, give it a quick spray of pan spray so the dough doesn't stick. And we're going to turn our dough into the bowl because now it has to sit and rest. I'm going to redo. If your oven has the setting to do bread proofing, use that. If not, just turn on your oven's light and that'll give enough heat to allow your bread to properly proof. We're going to let this rest for 2 hours. And then I'll show you the next step. Also, remember to save your egg whites. You'll use those to brush the bread later. Now, while our bread is proofing, we are going to work on making the hard-boiled eggs and the hrudka. To make hard-boiled eggs, we're going to put our eggs in a saucepan and cover with water till they're fully submerged. And I know I'm not doing a lot of eggs, but that's because my mother will be doing more with my step-niece and nephews. And then we're going to turn that on to a medium temperature and let that come to a boil. Now, while the eggs are boiling, we are going to prepare the hrudka. And what we'll need is a dozen eggs, a 1/4 gallon of sweet milk, or you can use 2 cans of sweetened condensed milk and 2 cans worth of regular milk. We'll need some vanilla, sugar, and salt. To start, we're going to put our milk mixture on to boil. And then it overflew. Oh well. There's two. Now we're going to put this on to boil. And we want this on low heat. Now time to prepare the egg mixture. That's going to be 12 eggs, cracked into a large bowl. And we're down. That's okay. Okay. Now that all our eggs are cracked, we're going to measure out 1 to 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. It all depends on how sweet you would like this. I like a sweeter Rupka, so I'm actually going to do 2. And then we need 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. And then 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And now we are going to beat our eggs just to mix them. So your egg mixture will look something like this. Now we are over at the stove to check on our milk mixture. And as you can see, the milk and the sweetened condensed milk are starting to blend together nice and smoothly. Again, we need this to come to a boil before we add the egg. Now, once the hookah is done, we are going to need cheesecloth to strain it. And we're going to line a strainer, and I'll show you how to prepare that. Alright, so for the cheesecloth, how I do it, you need a long strip and a short strip. And then have a strainer. What we're going to do, we're going to open the long strip like so. And then we're going to lay it in our cheese strain, and then we're going to lay it in our strainer. And now the shorter strip, we are also going to open that up. And then we're going to drape it into the strainer as well. And then for now, everything's just going to sit in the sink. Now that we're standing with our milk mixture, we can turn the heat up a little bit. This is very easy to burn, especially once we add the egg, so you want to watch this like a hawk. Now that the eggs are at a rolling boil, we're going to turn off the heat and just let those sit for 12 minutes. Alright, our milk mixture is starting to boil. So we're going to grab our egg mixture and very slowly, while stirring, we're going to add the egg into the milk. And you will want to stir this continuously because this can burn so quick, and if it burns, it's better to just start over. Alright, our hrudka is almost done. The way to tell when your hrudka is done is that you will see your water separate from the solids. And again, this is the very crucial stage where you want to constantly be stirring or risk burning your hrudka. Oh, of course I made a mess. Now, the liquid we are looking for separates like that. And that is how you know the hrudka is done. Now, we're going to take our strainer with the cheesecloth . And I'm going to show two methods of what we're going to do. First of all, there's the hanging method, and I'm showing you in the smaller one. That is where you put your hrudka mix into the cheesecloth. We're going to twist this together. Do be careful, this is quite hot. And then I'm going to just tie it to my sink faucet for it to hang and drip. Like so. The other method is a poured and pressed style. So we're just going to dump that into the cheesecloth. Ooh, you are starting to burn. So we're going to wrap it up. Then you want something with a flat bottom. And then we're going to take glass or weights to weigh down and press. And that's a 7.5 pound weight I just put on top of everything. And now we're going to let that go for the next hour or so. And now, because our hard-boiled eggs are ready, we're going to run cold water on the eggs. Next, we are going to make the krish. And I'm just making a little bit because my family loves making this. So we're going to put in some beets. Dump in some horseradish. A little splash of vinegar. And a pinch of sugar. You can either do this in a food processor. I don't have one of those, but I do have a lovely immersion blender. So here we go. I didn't add enough beet to horseradish, so give me 1 sec. All right. And that is your crush. Now that it's been 2 hours for our bread, we are going to lightly pound our dough down and let it rise again for another 45 minutes. So and now it's time to braid our bread. Our bread is nice and well proofed. So we're going to open that up. Turn that out. Now, I'm going to divide the dough in half. I'm going to get two large braids out of this. And now I'm going to divide the dough into thirds, which if you don't have a dough cutter, you can also just use a knife. But we're going to roll this out. All right. Once we've got our strands rolled out, we are going to braid them. Little fun history about this bread is that my mom or my dad, give or take on, you know, my parents' work schedules, would only ever make this bread at Christmas and Easter. So every time I make this bread, I'm instantly transported back to when I was a little kid, and that is how I knew it was the holidays, because somebody was making bread. So now that our bread is braided, we are going to twist it to make a nice, pretty little knot. And then carefully we're just going to pinch everything together on the bottom to seal and help it hold its shape. Then we're going to take a round pan, give it a quick spray. Then we're going to plop that in there and work on the next one. Right. Now this is where our saved egg whites come in. We're going to brush our loaves, and then we need to let them rise for another half an hour to an hour, or until the dough has doubled in size again. Now that our rührka is pressed, it's time to take it out of the cheesecloth, and we're going to wrap it in cling wrap. And then we'll put it in a Ziploc bag as well to store it. Remove it from the cheesecloth carefully. And there you go. And now the little one. Same thing. We're going to wrap it, and then we're going to put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in the refrigerator. So and there is the mini rührka from the hanging method. And in it goes. And now it's time for us to dye our eggs. I started my process off screen, but what I've done, I've combined half a cup of warm water with a splash of white vinegar, 2 drops of blue food dye, and 5 drops of green food dye to get a nice teal color. I'm only doing one color because I have so few eggs. So, we're going to drop our egg in and just let it sit to our desired color. You'll also see that I have lined my work area with paper towels and newspapers to deal with the mess. Gonna let it go a little longer. And ta-da! Here is our egg. Make sure you drain off any excess liquid, and then whoop, roll away egg. Then we'll put it on the wire rack to dry. Now that our Pascha bread is well risen, we are going to preheat our oven to 350 degrees Once that comes to temp, we're going to put our bread in and let it bake for 15 minutes. And now our timer's gone off for our bread. And look at it. Now, because these loaves are quite big, I did have to let them go an additional 5 minutes, so 20 minutes cook time. But they're perfect and ready to come out of the oven. I'm going to let this cool for about 10-15 minutes in the pan, then I'm going to take it out to cool on a wire rack. And now that the bread has cooled, this is our basket fully assembled. As you can see, we have our bread, our ham, I have the eggs in the back, bacon, our krish, our sausage, our rutke, the butter. Hiding in here is my salt holder. The only thing I don't have with this right now is the candle and the linen cover. But that is your traditional Easter basket. Well, that is everything. I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and may you have a wonderful and blessed Easter. Christ is risen. Indeed, he is risen.